Benjamin's secrets, Tsuraynik's crimes, Hulkenberg's true birth, and the culprit behind the attack on Fugetsu. Hunter x Hunter isn't just back, it is making up for lost time, cramming 2 years of revolutionary plot lines into 2 chapters. In fact, this Hunter x Hunter chapter apparently broke a record for the largest amount of text in a single Hunter x Hunter chapter, with over 10,000 characters, equating to about 3,000 English words. It is a very dense chapter, to say the least. In any other manga, the content of this chapter would be 3 or 4 separate chapters, maybe even more. And to pick up where we left off last time though, we start with a Tebepa development, being that she seems to be quite amenable to an alliance with 14th Prince Worbel. So it looks like Kurapika has found a solid collaborator for now, but also because Tsuraynik wasn't at the banquet, he snubbed her, and so Tebepa seems to be assuming that their deal is off. At the time, Tsuraynik was busy practicing Zetsu with Theta, and this was the incident where Theta proceeded to shoot him in the head, but Tsuraynik used Parallel Future to avoid that fate. And this was also when Melody interrupted with her musical ability, so Tsuraynik has a couple more important things to focus on right now, which means that Tebepa may not be our key to him anymore. That's looking more like Melody. However, in this Tebepa section, we do see a very important bodyguard. His name is Rihan, and he is currently the only person aboard the Black Whale 1 who has successfully defeated a Guardian Spirit Beast. And he did so by using his own ability Predator, which ate 8th Prince Saleh's Guardian Spirit Beast. And this left Saleh vulnerable, ever so vulnerable, and he was murdered shortly after by another one of Benjamin's private soldiers. His name was I always get this wrong. His name was Yushohi, and he has a really nasty Nen ability called Stand By Me, how to get away with murder. The reason why this is important is because Rihan is Benjamin's tech to deal with the Guardian Spirit Beasts, and Tebepa's beast made an interesting decision to appear in front of Rihan in this chapter, which could be a big mistake because Rihan's Predator functions in equivalency to how much Rihan knows about his target. So anything that the Guardian Spirit Beast does gives Rihan that information. And the idea is that with said information, Predator then evolves into the perfect natural predator for the target. Now, if Rihan is correct, and it's not necessarily good, but also not necessarily bad for us if he is, then Tebepa's Guardian Spirit Beast has appeared because it's finally found what was referred to as its quote research partner, because it appeared the moment Tebepa agreed to the alliance with Kurapika and Prince Worbel. Honestly, more so Kurapika, because he's the one that Tebepa mentions by name. He's protecting Worbel, but he's very much the center of this prince party. But that's far from the only prince party happening, as we also check in with Tsuraynik, a man who has the ability to project himself off the page and may be one of the most intimidating fictional characters I've ever encountered. I think that Salkov says it best in this chapter. Tsuraynik is an outlier among outliers. You see him running, playing games, having a conversation, and maintaining Zetsu all at once, and the only feeling that could possibly instill in anyone watching him is sheer powerlessness. One thing I think we underestimate about the 4th Prince is his psychological advantage, because every Nen user that's crossed paths with him effectively defeat themselves just by being in his presence. How can you win against someone that you don't believe you can defeat? We could be looking at another Meruem-like figure in the making. Someone who isn't intended to be defeated by traditional means, or someone who isn't intended to be defeated at all. Now, I've already mentioned this boy's name, but this is Salkov. Say hello to Salkov. And if this line had been said in any chapter before this one, it would have been completely meaningless and skipped over, but Salkov claims that he has known Zetsu since birth, essentially confirming that he is one of Beyond Netero's planned children who was initiated at birth. So this guy, who I've never really cared about properly enough to remember his name before now, is also a likely grandchild of Isaac Netero. With the idea behind Beyond Netero shenaniganry, I think being that he's produced at least 2 sacrificial children for each prince, a strong curse and a weak curse, meaning that Tsuraynik in each prince right now has 2 Netero grandchildren attached to them, and in the case of the 4th prince, I'd have to assume that Theta is the other one, because I believe that she and Salkov were the only members of Tsuraynik's guards that knew Nen, which makes Theta's interaction with Tsuraynik quite risky, because who knows what happens when and if, probably when, Tsuraynik's Guardian Spirit Beast makes Theta, quote, cease to be human. If she's his dedicated, strong, or even weak curse, then it could seriously backfire on him. That or front fire onto another prince and continue to pave Tsuraynik's path to victory. Back to Salkov, we get to see his thoughts and his speculation that Tsuraynik's second Nen Beast has an aura storage function, which is what allows Tsuraynik to use Parallel Future whilst in a state of Zetsu. I mean, Salkov Shalkov says it in a much more vague language than that because he doesn't know all the details that we do. But if he is correct, this is bad. Because it means it's potentially not just parallel future that can be achieved during Zetsu, but any number of other Hatsu as well using the aura stored within the beast. With this, you're effectively splitting yourself into two Nen users. There's the regular base one that we're all familiar with, and then there's the one that takes over during Zetsu with a completely different set of abilities. At the moment, all of this is still speculation though, but if the second Nen beast functions as more of an aura well, then it is infinitely more dangerous than originally suspected when I was just assuming that the beast gave him a single ability. But now is where we move to the main meat of the chapter, being everything surrounding 11th Prince Fugetsu. And the opening of this section is pretty trippy, especially if you've forgotten that Kacho is actually a guardian spirit beast pretending to be Kacho, hence why she can do all sorts of funky stuff like appear upside down in Melody's cell. But this Kacho beast is here to give Melody a report of what looks to be some sort of bite and or injection in Kacho's back. And I'm really curious to see what the official translation has to say about this, because the translation online at the moment uses very specific terminology. It has Melody identify this as a use of inscription. Melody suspects that this is Nen inscription, which is a necessary first step for many abilities. A good example of this is Nov. His hide and seek ability uses inscription on the handcuffs that contain the master key to all of the rooms in his mansion. So it's implied that his ability is greatly boosted by inscription or cannot function without inscription. But whether it is or not, we now have a new working theory as to Fugetsu's, how shall we say, new state of being. With her guardian spirit beast, before attempting to escape the Black Whale on Makacho, Fugetsu was only capable of using it once per day, and it left her completely drained afterwards. But now she can use it many times a day, and also on her own. Previously, she needed Kacho to use it. And so it's suspected that the reason why Fugetsu can now use this multi-times is because she's not actually using her own Nen ability. What she's using is a copy Nen ability generated by whatever's infected her. And the main finger of suspicion is pointed at 7th Prince Luzurus for two reasons. Firstly, because of the suspected drug effect, and he is of course the head of Drugland. I'd also like to add that his guardian spirit beast feasibly looks like something that could make a bug bite. But secondly, because his guardian spirit beast is known to set traps by showing people what they want to see. And in this case, what Fugetsu wants to see is a door that she can use infinitely, and if so, then this is playing out sinisterly brilliantly. And it could be that Fugetsu is adding these spirits to herself, or making them more powerful with each use of magical worm. Luzurus is giving her everything she wants, and it is slowly killing her in accordance with how much she takes. However, there is a however. Here's why I'm not 100% on board with Luzurus being responsible for this. It's because the guardian spirit beasts have two rules. Rule number the first: the guardian spirit beasts do not kill each other, and secondly, they do not attack people who have spirit beasts themselves. So unless this is a very technical loophole around the word attack, which we did actually explore at great length in the last chapter with Kurapika and Longi, I don't know if Luzurus's spirit beast is physically capable of doing this to Fugetsu. Also, if Nen inscription is involved, then that would point to a person who understands how to speak that programming language. I mean, maybe a guardian spirit beast could do it, but from my perspective, it makes it less likely because they usually operate more on instinct. Which is why the current plan to counter what's happening to Fugetsu is quite funny in a very black comedy way, because the idea is to kill murder Prince Luzurus just in case he's the one responsible. So if I'm understanding this correctly, they plan to kill Luzurus by making him suffer the same fate as Kacho, which I think is quite risky because everyone knows how Kacho died, and they also know where and probably have a good idea of how. So this gets a little confusing, but everyone knows that Kacho is dead except for Fugetsu. I don't know how that information is being kept from her. In fact, it may even be a condition of the without you guardian spirit beast ability, something to keep Fugetsu ignorant and mentally protected. But Kacho Beast is also playing a part in this by convincing Fugetsu that everyone thinks she's dead when she's actually not, when in fact it is very much the other way around. And at some point, Kacho Beast plans on revealing herself, which means that dynamic would flip. Everyone thinks she's alive, but no, she's actually dead. Doesn't matter for now. What matters is that the rest of this chapter is a very clever plan to get into Luzurus's room. The reason for this is because Fugetsu can only open a door to a location that she's already visited before. And Kaiser, this very smart man, decides that this would be a great opportunity to give Fugetsu some wormhole options by visiting a ton of other princes as well. This could become very relevant because Fugetsu visits Tebeppa's room, which means that with our Kurapika alliance, we may actually be able to connect the Fugetsu and the Kurapika groups at some stage. But we should talk about this man again. His name is Kaiser, and he is a member of the Kakin Justice Bureau, so theoretically he's meant to be impartial in this contest, and actually, his role is to enforce the rules of the non-nen aspects, aka the legal system. However, after Melody's performance at the banquet, Kaiser reveals that he's fallen in love with her, and is now willing to do whatever he can to help Fugetsu in order to help Melody because of the aforementioned love feeling. And Melody is automatically suspicious just based on the fact that Kaiser is flirting with her. Post Sonata of Darkness, that's just not a thing that a lot of people do. So she is incredibly wary around him, thinking that he is either being manipulated by another faction, or that he's pretending not to know Nen and in fact manipulating himself in order to fool Melody's reading of his heart. Either way, as helpful as Kaiser is being, at best he's only doing it so that he can get some of that Melodusi, and at worst it's because he's setting us up. At least according to Melody. Maybe Kaiser's feelings are real, and Melody is in such disbelief that she cannot bring herself to accept that it's not manipulation. To be fair to him, Kaiser has also said that he's helping because he believes that it would be best for Fugetsu to win the succession contest and claim the throne to hopefully change Kakin society, with the addendum that she would need Kacho by her side, which would assumedly happen because King Nasabi got to keep his guardian spirit beast after the last contest. So if Fugetsu were to win, then she would be carrying 2 guardian spirit beasts into her reign. However, every time Kaiser says anything, Melody mentions that he's likely an enemy or being manipulated by an enemy, so I don't know if this is a case of Melody just doing the logical thing and thinking of all possibilities, or if this is Togashi speaking to us and trying to ram this idea into our heads, because these aren't throwaway thoughts. Every interaction that Melody has with Kaiser results in this, and one option could be that Togashi is trying to make Kaiser seem overly guilty, only to subvert that and have him be a decent guy all along. For step 1 of the plan, though, we visit Prince Benjamin, and he instantly recognizes Fugetsu's condition, and from what he's thinking, it would appear that his faction is cleared of all responsibility for this. Benjamin seems to believe that Fugetsu has actually inflicted this upon herself, that this is a manifestation of Fugetsu's own despair killing her. Because of the mark on her back, I don't quite believe that, but it is an interesting idea, and it does make sense because Nen, it responds to desires and needs. So if all that remains in a person is despair, then does that aura turn sour and begin to work against you? I don't know. But we also have some Benjamin Guardian Spirit Beast action, as it seems to dispel Fugetsu's spirits temporarily with one of its mounts. The funny thing is that Benjamin can't actually see his own Guardian Spirit Beast, so he has no idea what just got rid of Fugetsu's spirits. He's just like, whoa, some spirits, and then, oh, they're gone. Benjamin then asks Kaiser about Moose, which is complete performative bullshit. Benjamin knows well and good that Moose is dead, because he was the soldier killed by Camilla's cat's name, and more importantly, Benjamin inherited Moose's Nen ability Secret Window after his death through Benjamin Baton. This all happened like 30 chapters ago, so what is that, 7 years in real life for us? And stuff like this is one of the reasons why this arc is so difficult to keep up with, because every random name now has an established story that interlocks with everything else. But all of this is working towards Benjamin's perceived win condition of enacting martial law, which, as the deputy advisor of the Royal Kakin Army, he would have the full authority to do so should a strong enough case be put together. And that would be incredibly bad because a big component of the succession war is following the law. You gotta do it. However, if you were to be able to control the law, then you can see how that would be a bit of an unfair advantage. So Benjamin is trying to instigate a military crisis and initiate martial law by sacrificing some of his own soldiers, which would need to go through legal approval in court, and mate, I can just see it now. The succession contest could take a turn into the legal realm, and we could find Hunter x Hunter becoming a litigious court battle between Nen lawyers. It is not out of the realm of possibility. We also see Fugetsu visit 10th Prince Tyson, which is a very cute panel, because Tyson looks genuinely heartbroken and is, I think, the only prince to offer Fugetsu genuine condolences for the death of Kacho. I also wonder if these were the only princes that Fugetsu visited: Benjamin, Tebepa, Tyson, and Luzurus. Because we know that there are also letters for Hulkenberg and Kurapika, but what about the others? But to the man in question here, Luzurus's dialogue is quite cold right off the bat. He says, "Sorry to hear about your sister," which I think shows how isolated the princes are from one another. Officially, Kacho is your sister as well, Luzurus. Although actually, if one of them is Beyond's child, then they aren't related by blood at all. But this is where we get our first glimpse of just how sharp and dangerous Luzurus is, because he isn't fooled by this for a second. And I guess this is where I should bring up the planted information, the big bombshells. The Kakin Justice Factory have conducted their own independent investigations on each prince. I think the idea is that they need to be prepared in the case that any prince ever attempted to commandeer said Justice Department. And Luzurus was given information about Saraidnik, his various artistic crimes, I imagine. This is more than likely because Cyrenic is the benefactor of the Hale-Lee family, and this is an attempt to turn two mafia factions against each other, as Luzerus is the benefactor of the Chara family. However, Cyrenic and Zhang Lei are the two princes that Luzerus is least likely to target because of the philosophy of the mafia families. That philosophy being sweet, sweet balance. Luzerus even chants it in this chapter. Although unbeknownst to him, the Chara family have already declared war against the Hale-Lee family on the lower tiers, so that conflict is naturally developing on its own regardless. And before leaving, Basho gives Fugetsu a charm that he created with great haiku, which I mention because it's one of my favorite and I think one of the most powerful nen abilities in the series. Basho can theoretically use it to create anything, but its effectiveness is dependent on how good the haiku is, and they're never really they're not good. But this charm has bought Fugetsu some time. She's no longer imminently dead. However, she is about to become part of a very dangerous plot to assassinate Prince Luzerus, so she's far from safe. And then there's Hulkenberg. According to Melody, his letter contains everything. Benjamin's secrets, Cyrenics crimes, and the truth of his own birth. And this could just be very convenient timing, but that certainly does move him up to prime suspect in the case of Beyond Netero's child prince. But apparently that's not even the most mind-blowing part about this letter, because it also contains information that could shake the very foundation of the contest. And we're going to get into all of that in the next video.